Hello everybody, I am Neon and I'm here to run through the February 2019 tier list, what's popular, what's powerful on the ladder, and what do you need to know before getting into that ECQ that's happening a little bit later this week. Doing a little bit of a different format, of course. You can actually see me this time. It might be a little bit weird for you who haven't been, you're watching my stream or whatever, who and listening to me for a long time. You actually see me now, but yeah, I thought it would mix things up, and of course, let me know what you think about that in the comments. But we're going to get right into things. I want to start off by talking about the methodology, though, just so that we're clear about what exactly we're talking about here. So the tier list is trying to evaluate what's popular and powerful on the ladder. I get my numbers from some players, the top ranked players that are doing well on either the ladder or in competitive scene that I know about. So I asked them about what their thoughts were in the survey. That's where I get my numbers from. Power versus popularity, different tier lists, try to evaluate these in different ways. I do a separate rating for each of them, and so you'll see that in this discussion. And then what am I talking about? Ranked play, ladder play, or tournament play? I'm trying to talk about both. Now, there are some decks that are going to do a little bit better or a little bit worse in one versus the other, and I asked people to just average out their opinion of the two when in doubt. But this is all, of course, just a summary of an actual article that's on the a+space website. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, you have any questions, go look at that. This is just going to focus on the best performing decks in both categories so that we can get a summary of what's going on here. So let's talk first then about power level. There are two decks that got to the top rank of power level this month, and that is Winchest and Haunted Highway. So these are two decks that you've probably seen a lot of. They've been doing well in tournaments. They are, I think, a step above the rest of the competition in terms of power level. There are a bunch of other decks, though, that are in the tier 1.5 range, which is just a little bit worse. Some of them are Ricano, Canadians, Genève is doing well, Exton, FPS Peak, Skycrag Aggro, Argenport Aggro, Cambrai Ramp, Scrappy Hour, and Blitz. So that's a lot of decks that are in that tier 1.5 range. Now, different times when I've done the tier list, I feel like the gap between tier 1 and tier 1.5 is bigger or smaller. This is a month where I really feel as if this gap is fairly small. If you even compare to last month, I think that even tier 1 was basically, there was one deck that was truly tier 1 or more like tier 0, and then everything else, and that was, of course, Winchest. Now things are much, much closer, and that the decks that are all at 1.5 are all definitely competitively viable. I wouldn't be too scared playing them in the event, or in the ETS if that's what you're interested in, and they can definitely get you to Masters. So how I would describe it in terms of understanding the difference between these two tiers right now is that at tier 1, I would be surprised if there was no Winchest or Haunted Highway deck that made it into the top 8s of the ETS and the ECQ. Well, the tier 1.5 decks, each of the individual decks, I wouldn't be surprised if they made it, but I wouldn't expect like the majority of the top 8 to be made up of those decks. So that's my evaluation of this. So there's a lot of decks that are all viable and powerful, but maybe Haunted Highway and Winchest are just a little bit better than the rest. Now let's talk about popularity. There are a lot of actually really popular decks, relatively speaking. Winchest, Ricano, Skycrag Aggro, Haunted Highway, Genève, and Cambrai Ramp are all in that top rank of popularity. So that's a lot of them. And then for tier 1.5, we have Exton, FPS Peak, Elysian Mall, Canadians, Winchest Grenadines, Argenport Midrange, and Blitz. So this tier 1.5 I don't take quite as seriously. Even here, I don't know if I would say that I've seen all these as much myself, but what I would say is that tier 1 combination of decks, these 6 decks here, this is definitely what I've seen that makes up the majority of the ladder. And some combination of these, it obviously shifts from day to day. So if you're preparing for that ECQ and for that ETS event, be sure that you are prepared to face against these decks and that you have them in mind when you're building your deck, because these are the ones that you're going to see, I think, in the average tournament or the average laddering session. They are very popular, and they're all pretty good too. So now let's talk then about the underrated decks and the overrated decks. This is a definition that talks about the comparisons between the two rankings of power level versus popularity. So an underrated deck is a deck that is rated as being more powerful than it was popular. So the two that met this criteria this time was Stone Scar Aggro and Praxis tokens. These didn't make into the tier 1 and tier 1.5. Once again, read the article if you want more details of the lower ranks below that. But these are two decks, the Stone Sword aggro. I think that the reason why it doesn't see more play is because it's a little bit similar to Haunted Highway and to Skycrag aggro or Rakano aggro. Those other decks kind of do similar things a little bit better. Like if you really want the charge heavy aggro stuff, then Haunted Highway is a very good deck and does a lot of the similar things, but a little bit more efficiently. And then if you're more interested in a more durable aggro deck, then both the Rakano and the Skycrag deck are a little bit better at the fairer gameplay compared to the Haunted Highway. So I think that that's why it's being underplayed right now, even though the deck is like okay in terms of power level. Praxis tokens, on the other hand, this is more has to do with just the timing of things. The Praxis tokens has actually really picked up in popularity in the last couple of days. I sent out this survey initially a couple of days ago, so I think that was right at the beginning of when it was taking off. I don't know how it's going to go over the course of the next little while, but maybe it was a reflection of the fact that that deck hadn't yet kind of caught fire yet, and that these players were seeing that this is a good deck to keep an eye on. So I know that Lights Out Ace is going to be very happy with me of saying like, hey, this deck is underrated. Maybe people should try it out, but definitely one to keep an eye on over the next little while. Overrated decks. Now, these are the decks that are more popular than they are powerful. So the two that fit this category this time were Cambrai Ramp and Elysian Maul. Cambrai Ramp is a deck that is quite powerful. Don't get me wrong; it has a decent power level to it. It's just a little bit inconsistent, a little bit fragile, and if you know how to play against it, you know how to break up the various ways that it wins the game and know how to slow it down enough that you can win a lot of the time. So the deck definitely does have a lot of oomph, and it's going to win some games, but it might be overplayed just a scotch for right now. Elysian Maul, on the other hand, this is a deck that I think people are very aware of. It's kind of become very popular on the ladder, but as people have learned how to play against it, the power level has been kind of decreased a little bit. It's good. Don't get me wrong. Definitely play this deck sometimes, but I don't think that it's currently in that top ranks of power level personally. But anyway, that is that for the. So thank you very much for joining me, and I also want to thank Ink Gaming. They are, of course, sponsor of a+space games. If you have a chance, check out their absolutely wonderful merchandise with all sorts of wonderful custom artwork, and you can use the code a+space12 to save 12% off your order. You can also discuss this tier list on our Discord channel. There's a link to that below. There's going to be a Reddit thread as well. Once again, there should be a link in the description. Twitter, I'm very active there, unfortunately, but very happy to take any questions and conversations about how to interpret all of this. And I'm also on Twitch now. I'm streaming now. This is part of the reason that I have this lovely webcam to be able to talk to you. So I'm hoping to stream just even tonight after this comes out and have a chance to talk with you about all of the wonderful things that has happened in the tier list. So thank you again, once again, for joining me today. Be sure to like and subscribe and share. See you all again next time.